I want to tell you something I'm not proud of. I spent 10 minutes researching candidates before the last election. 10 minutes. For decisions that affect millions of people's lives for years. And to be honest, there were positions on the ballot where I filled in a name based on nothing but the political label next to it. I didn't know who I was voting for. I just voted down the line. I know most of us has done this, and I know a significant number of people who haven't really voted at all, not even because of apathy exactly, but out of a reasonable conclusion that it doesn't seem to matter. I want to examine this conclusion today because I think it's both completely understandable but also structurally dangerous. And I think the Hermetic principle we talked about last episode, as within, so without, has something specific to really say about why it's dangerous. So welcome back to the Wei of Reckoning, and I am Wei. Last episode we turned the lens inward towards the internal audit, the mirror principle, the inventory of what's running automatically within us, inside of us, our daily routine. Today I want to take that same lens and point it directly at the political system, at how we've been engaging with democracy, what that lack of engagement has cost us, and what I genuinely think we can do differently. So this is going to be the civic reckoning. As within, so without. Let me apply that to civic life directly. Democracy is structurally similar to living on your own for the first time. When you live alone, nobody does your laundry for you. Nobody cooks your food. Nobody cleans your space. The maintenance of your household falls entirely on you. And if you neglect it, the household deteriorates in direct proportion into your neglect. Nobody's coming to fix it. The condition of the space is a mirror of the attention you've given it. Democracy works the same way. It requires maintenance. It requires participation, not just every 4 years at the presidential level, but consistently, locally, at every level where decisions are actually made about our daily life. And most of us, including myself, until recently, I've been treating it like a furnished apartment where someone else handles the upkeep. And I've been reflecting on how I've engaged with the political system my whole adult life. And what I see when I look honestly in the mirror is exactly the passivity I've described in the last episode. I consumed political content. I had strong opinions. I argued online. I spent 10 minutes filling out a ballot I barely understood. So the gap between the strength of my political opinions and the depth of my actual engagement is the gap I want to close. So I understand why people disengage. I want to say that clearly before anything else, because I think we all feel that. When you vote cycle after cycle and watch your life become harder, regardless of who wins, when the promise made before elections bear no relationship to the policies enacted after them, the conclusion that participation doesn't matter is not irrational. It is actually a reasonable inference from available evidence. So even as I write this, I'm almost laughing in my head because it's like, just to suggest change, we are so far from the world where, we want our leader to be competent, uncorruptible, and genuinely accountable to the people they represent. I feel that is so far away from the reality we have now, and I feel it's getting further and further. So, but here's a Hermetic problem with collective despair. Despair is an inner state. And per the mirror principle, inner state produces outer results. And when we fall into collective powerlessness, when we decide that nothing we do matters, we stop doing things. We disengage. We surrender the space. And the people who are abusing the system, they never stop doing things. They are organized. They are funded. They show up at every school, board meeting, every city council vote, every primary election. They're consistent in a way most of us in our deep despair and exhaustion are not. When we put our energy to where results, like wherever we put our energy is where results will come. This is not a motivational statement. It is a structural observation of how power accumulates and how it is displaced. The question is not whether the system is broken. It clearly is. I think we can all see that. The question is whether we participate in fixing it or we surrender the field to the people who broke it. So I want to be specific here, because I think vague encouragement to get involved. So, when I tell you, so it's like, so let me tell you what I have actually changed. What are some tangible to do to make it a little bit better? So first, I've stopped trying to get pulled into political arguments online. I used to do this all the time on IG, Facebook. Most of what you're engaging with in the comment sections or replies are not even genuine human discourse. I would say a lot of them are bots or they're trolls. They just want to say something outrageous, and algorithmically they've been amplified really for outrage because it creates engagement. It's socially engineered to really drain your energy when you need that for something more productive. So recognizing this is not cynicism. It's really just, information security for your own attention. You have to be aware of what, you put your mind to, what you're absorbing. And the energy I was spending arguing with strangers online, I am now putting it, somewhere where I can actually move something. So the second thing that I've done is, before we've had a local election, and this time I put aside 30 minutes to actually research what was on the ballot. So not hours, 30 minutes, that's at least 3 times more than what I gave you before. I wish I would have given some more time, but and what I found was actually pretty striking. When I looked at a lot of the local candidates, most of the time they were invisible online. So they're not going on podcasts, going on Theo Vaughn or Joe Rogan. Like when I look for these names, they're not running social media campaigns. They are operating in an information vacuum that it's really difficult to see who they are to a motivated voter to really find out what they stood for, what their philosophy and what their really how they think about the world and their position. There is almost no real information on that. And I think that invisibility itself is kind of an important information. For local government, your city council, your school board, your district attorney, these people, they make decisions that affect your daily life more directly than anything that happens at a federal level, and operates in near obscurity because most people's attentions are pointed at these national spectacles, like, oh, what is, these people on a national level doing, where I really think, we also have to turn the lens into our local government. And I think this is not an accident. So here's something where I want to plant something. I would rather have a mother who has navigated the real economy, who has managed a household budget, raised children, dealt with a healthcare system that doesn't work, and been accountable to actual consequences, to really run for her school board or her city council than another career politician who's never been accountable to anything but a donor list and a party apparatus. So, I would rather have a father who's ran a small business, who's hired people, made payroll, and felt the weight of economic decisions on, real lives sitting on the city council, rather than someone's whose entire career has been inside this institution that insulates them from really the results of their own choices. Because when's the last time, we had a politician who understood the daily lives? I feel they've always just been, career politicians who don't know anything about what it's like to live in, quote unquote, the real world. And I really think the best people equipped to fix this broken system are people who have lived inside the consequences of those systems, not the people who spend their career managing the optics of them. So here's something most people don't know. At least I didn't know. When I found out, I was like, I'm sure maybe we were taught in sixth grade about how government, but you only need to be 25 years old to run for the United States Congress. So for local and state positions, the bar is even lower, I think. So most people have no idea how local government is structured, what elected positions exist at the city and county level, how decisions actually get made in the rooms, close to our daily lives. I don't know how, how these ordinances in our city are conducted. Is there a hearing? How do we put, our input as civilians? I have no idea. So that's something, I gotta look into, and we all really have to look into what the apparatus is of how all levels of government works. And that really that lack of knowledge isn't a personal failing. I think it's a systematic one. An educated and engaged citizenry is significantly harder to manage than a disengaged and uninformed one. I think this is something we should have been taught maybe in high school or as even in college, something that we should be promoted to do. But it seems like it's just like this black box of how the government works. So really this show is going to start covering civic education alongside everything else, how government actually works, where the leverage points are, and what it looks like for an ordinary person to run for something and why more ordinary people should. If this show convinces just one person to run for their district, one person who has actually lived in the real economy, raised a family, built something, struggled with, something I would consider that a significant win for this podcast. If one person in one room making one decision differently, I think is how the system actually change and can change. So not from the top down, but from inside out. As within, so without. So the civic reckoning starts with the same place the inner audit started. Really being honest about the gap between what we say we believe and what we actually do. So I believe in democracy, but I only gave it 10 minutes before. I believe in my community, but I knew nothing about who governed it or how it's governed. I had really strong opinions about the direction of the country, and I've spent hours just talking to my friends about it, but I really have zero knowledge of the people that was on my local ballot. And that is a gap. And the only direction I know how to close a gap is to start measuring it honestly and then start working towards filling that gap. So 30 minutes before the next election, one local race researched properly, one conversation with someone who's never voted, maybe never voted before, and why they stopped. Just have a conversation with them. And one question about what position in your community you might actually be qualified to fill. So small numbers, real leverage, guys. So if you plan or have some additional information and it motivated you to really run for office or motivate other people, feel free to comment and let us know what your journey is. I would love to if you're running for office, I would love to know how that process works, and hopefully you'll be an inspiration to other people. Even if you don't win, I think just starting and putting your name on the ballot is huge. So This is Way of Reckoning. I think the reckoning is going to start going out to the political system that governs us. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more episodes.